People remember stories. They can have a real impact, and the story can be the thing that you remember when everything else just goes from your memory. They can persuade, influence, they can deceive you. You remember the highlights of a story as well, because it's got a beginning and a middle and an end. And stories have characters as well that can have a big impact on you. You can identify with those characters or identify with a situation. And that's how marketing makes use of stories. So it helps you to create a picture in your mind that might influence your choice, influence your decision. And I think that's why we've decided to use storytelling as a theme for our course in a way, because it helps us understand our own respective positions in a story. And I think we're seeing these days real stories from real people being used in marketing, whether it's stories from the people that are working in a company and they sort of express the values of the company sometimes if they're interviewed and if their stories are told. And companies now are also sharing the stories of their own customers so that new customers can see how their products and services are being used. Today I'm with Steve Killick. Steve is a psychologist and a storyteller. Tell us a bit more about yourself, Steve.
Well, I work as a psychologist in health and education, and I'm using stories as a way of helping people understand themselves, understand relationships a little bit better. Part of my research is looking at how storytelling is not just an activity for very young children that's a bit of fun, but it's actually a very meaningful activity that we all engage in. We all want to hear each other's stories, and we want somebody to listen to our stories as well. So it's a very fundamental human aspect of communication. I think businesses and organizations are using stories more and more because they engage people and they engage them on an emotional level. We've been telling stories for hundreds and thousands of years. They're one of the ways we communicate with each other. We can tell what's happened to us, we can make things up, we can exercise our imagination. Often, if you ask what makes a good story, it's usually about somebody who's got a problem in some way, some kind of challenge. Something that has to be overcome. And a story is, it's an emotional workout. There's always lots of different emotional moments in a story. It's usually about some struggle of, wanting to love, wanting to be true to oneself in some ways, or doing something which is very, very fundamentally human. I think when we engage in a story, it's telling us something about being human and some of the dilemmas about being alive, and wanting to overcome a problem in a way. So a good story reminds us of what's important to us and how to live with each other in some ways. They can make us wiser.
Oh, okay. And does that really explain why some businesses and organisations are using stories more and more to market their services and their products, because they're so powerful?
Well, I think, yes, stories are a very powerful way that we communicate and try and influence each other. And I wonder if it's appealing to businesses now, because sometimes reasons, explanations and facts don't really engage us. So a lot of our decisions are to do with wanting to feel better about something. So stories can often connect us with those kind of feelings and engage us much more emotionally than statistics can.
And you mentioned identification before. Can you tell us what that means in relation to a story?
Well, I think in a sense, when we, maybe when we watch a film or read a book or listen to a story, we're placing ourselves in that story.
Do you think businesses and organisations have stories that consumers really want to hear?
Well, I would hope so, because I think we always want to hear a story. We always want to learn how our lives might be better, how things could be better. And in a way, stories entertain us, but they also educate us as well. So we can, if we can see how things might be better for us, then using a story, if it's a genuine and well-felt story, it's going to be powerful and influence people. If it doesn't feel true, then it may not achieve its objective.
I don't think I'm very good at telling stories. How would you advise me if I wanted to tell a story about my own experience in my company, or my own experience of anything?
I think actually we're all very good at telling stories, and we've got to find our own way of telling a story, and it can help to think, well, what's the story I want to tell? How can I tell that quickly? I mean, one of the things is actually spending too long telling a story. It's actually good to get to the point of a story very quickly. What are the key emotions and the key human characteristics that are featured in this story? What are the universals? And I think those are the things that pull us into a story.
That's brilliant. Steve, thank you very much.